Lion Media.
Ramakrishna Paramahansa was born February 18, 1836. He was an Indian mystic and religious leader in the 19th century. Ramakrishna approached his religious life through the path of devotion towards the goddess Kali, and by observance of various elements from Tantra, Vaishnava Bhakti, and Advaita Vedanta, as well as dalliances with Christianity and Islam. Ramakrishna, who experienced spiritual ecstasies from a very young age, started his religious life as a priest at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. Soon, his mystical temperament and spiritual nature gained him widespread acknowledgement as a guru, attracting to him various teachers, social leaders, Bengali elites, and lay followers. Together, they formed the monistic Ramakrishna order after his death. His chief disciple, Swami Vivekananda, popularized his ideas and founded the Ramakrishna Math, which provides spiritual training to monastics and householder devotees, and the Ramakrishna Mission to provide charity, social work, and education. Ramakrishna was born into a very small village in the Hooghly district of West Bengal, India, into a very poor but pious and orthodox Bengali Brahmin family. He was the fourth and youngest child to his parents. The couple's first son, Ram Kumar, is said to have been born in 1805, a daughter born 5 years later, and a second son, Rameshwar, in 1826. There has been some dispute about the origin of the name Ramakrishna, but it was most probably given to him by his father. Around the age of 6 or 7, Ramakrishna experienced his first moment of spiritual trance or samadhi. One morning, while walking along the narrow edges of a paddy field, eating some puffed rice from a small basket, he came across a flock of milky white cranes flying against the background of heavy rain. The ensuing sight was so beautiful that he became absorbed into it and lost all of his outer consciousness before falling down with the rice scattered all over him. People nearby who saw this came to the rescue and carried him home. He reportedly had experiences of a similar nature throughout his childhood. At age 9, in accordance with the Brahminical tradition, the sacred thread was vested on him, thus making him eligible for conducting ritual worship in the temple. He would later help his family in performing worship of their deities as well. Although Ramakrishna attended a village school with some regularity for 12 years, he later rejected traditional schooling, saying that he was not interested in breadwinning education. Ramakrishna became well versed in the Puranas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavad Purana, hearing them from the wandering monks, a class of men in ancient India who preached and sang the Puranas. He could read and write in Bengali. Ramakrishna's father passed away in 1843, a loss which he felt very strongly, making him even more reticent. On a few occasions, visiting the nearby cremation ground alone, he would practice spiritual disciplines there. At this stage, the family responsibilities fell on his elder brother, Ram Kumar, who was about 31 years older than he. When Ramakrishna was in his teens, as the family's financial position worsened, Ram Kumar started a Sanskrit school in Calcutta, whilst also serving as a priest there. Ramakrishna moved to Calcutta in 1852, along with his brother, to assist him in his priestly work. In Calcutta, there lived the famous Rani Rasmani, a feisty, wealthy, widowed mother of 4 daughters. Inheriting property from her husband, she managed to endear herself to the people of the city through her exceptional managerial skills and also her various philanthropic works. Well known for her kindness and benevolence to the poor and also for her religious devotion, she was much loved and revered by all, and proved herself to be worthy of the title Rani. Being an ardent devotee of the goddess Kali, she had the words Sri Rasmani Dasi, longing for the feet of Kali, inscribed in her estate's official seal. After having a vision of the goddess Kali in a dream on the night before her departure for a pilgrimage to the holy city of Kashi, she founded the now famous Dakshineshwar Kali temple. Reportedly, in the dream, the goddess instructed her that instead of visiting Kashi, she had better set up a stone idol of the goddess at a beautiful place on the banks of the river, and make arrangements for daily worship and prasad offerings. Then she would manifest there and receive her worship. With great delight, the Rani started the construction of the temple, but as the days passed, she began to worry about a prevalent custom in society which prevented people of low birth from offering prasad to deities in the temple. It was her heart's desire to offer prasad to the deity of Kali, and if she did so, going against the norms of society, then no devout person or a Brahmin would ever visit the temple. To find a scriptural solution to her problem, the Rani got written opinions of various pundits from different parts of the country. However, none of them were in her favor. It was a long, fruitless search for some 8 years, with the construction of the temple and deity completed, but no solution to her problem. When all hope was lost, out came a letter from Ram Kumar, who assured her that scriptural principles would be observed intact if she provides the property as a gift to a Brahmin, who can then install the deity and make arrangements for the food offerings of prasad. No blemish would be incurred by anyone who partook of the prasad there. With her hopes revived, the Rani informed the other pundits about the solution from Ram Kumar, but they rejected it, saying that this would go against the prevailing customs. And even though it was scripturally sanctioned, they would not partake of the prasad there if she went ahead with her plan. The Rani nevertheless decided to consecrate the temple and proceeded with her plans, only to find that no priest was willing to officiate or serve in the temple, as she was regarded as a low-caste Sudra. But she did not give up, and instead started a search for a virtuous Brahmin who would serve as a priest in her temple. While the search was on, a Brahmin named Mahesh Chandra, who worked at the estate of the Rani, and her secretary, Radhan Ghosh, both of whom are well acquainted with Ram Kumar, requested him to come and officiate as a priest at the Rani's temple, albeit temporarily. The devout Ram Kumar agreed, and later, at the request of the Rani herself, served there as a priest for the rest of his life. When Ramakrishna first came to know about his brother's decision to officiate as a priest, he tried to deter him from doing so by impressing on him the fact that his father never officiated at the ceremonies of Sudras, but the will of Ram Kumar prevailed in the matter. On Thursday, May 31st, 1855, Ram Kumar, in the presence of his brother Ramakrishna, officiated at the dedication ceremony of the Kali temple. Within 3 months after the consecration of the temple, Mathur Babu, much impressed by Ramakrishna, appointed him with the task of dressing the deity of Kali, and Hirde, the 16-year-old nephew of Ramakrishna, as an assistant to both him and Ram Kumar. Ram Kumar began to teach his brother in the mode of worship and service of the goddess, with the hope that he may perform them in his absence. To initiate him properly, a sadhika of Shakti, named Kenaram Bhatta Acharya, was invited. He was apparently charmed to see the real religious fervor in Ramakrishna, who became ecstatic as soon as a mantra was recited in his ear. In order to get him accustomed, Ram Kumar later employed Ramakrishna on a few occasions to perform the worship of Kali. As Ram Kumar grew old and infirm to carry out the difficult duties at the temple, Mathur, with the permission of the Rani, requested him to move to the Vishnu temple in the complex for conducting worship, and appointed Ramakrishna to the office of head priest. Ram Kumar was glad with this arrangement, and after serving for 1 year since the consecration of the temple, passed away suddenly in 1856, while preparing to go home on leave. At the age of 20, Ramakrishna, who had now seen more than his share of death in the family, he realized the impermanence of life and became more engrossed in the worship of the Mother. After the daily worship, he would sit in the temple, looking at the deity intently, and became absorbed in her, before losing himself in devotion while singing with a profound emotion the songs composed by the devotees like Ram Prasad. He regarded their songs as an aid in his worship, and was certain about getting the vision of the Mother as Ram Prasad did. With an ardent heart he would say, "Thou showed thyself to Ram Prasad, Mother. Why then, not me? Thou hast not revealed thyself to me. Why not? I don't want fame, friends, followers, relatives, enjoyment of pleasures, and the like. Do show thyself to me." Being adverse to wasting any time, after the closure of the temple during midday or at night, he would visit the nearby jungle to think and meditate more upon the Mother. Before meditating, he would put down his clothes and the sacred thread aside, and meditate completely nude. When Hirde, his nephew, found this out, he confronted him for a reason to explain his conduct. Ramakrishna explained that when one thinks about God, one should be free of all attachments and the 8 servitudes of hatred, fear, shame, aversion, egotism, vanity, noble descent, and even good conduct. He viewed his sacred thread as a display of the ego of his Brahmin descent, and thus kept it aside, and said, when calling upon the Mother, one should discard all such bondages and call upon her in a focused, innocent mind. He assured his nephew that he would put them back on at the end of his meditation. Hirde was aghast at hearing this, and left in dismay. In this way he spent days and nights in prayer, singing, and meditation, while his longing for her vision kept increasing daily. It was not long before the people around the temple started noticing the passion and adherence to his devotion, which was unperturbed by the opinions of people around him. The Rani was informed by her son-in-law Mathur. Thus, "We have got an extraordinary worshipper. the goddess will be awakened very soon. As the days passed, Ramakrishna's food intake and sleep gradually declined, and when not engaged in either worship or meditation, he was seen in a state of turmoil over whether he would have a vision of the mother or not. Seeing the evening sun, he would cry, "Mother, another day is gone and still I have not seen you." Eventually he would ask, "Are you true, Mother? Or is it all a fabrication of my mind? Mere poetry without reality. If you do exist, then why? Why can I not see you?" In time, his longing for her vision became extreme, and was seen engaged in either worship or meditation for almost 24 hours a day. Despairing and feeling an unbearable pain at the thought that he might never have her vision, one day, as he later recounted, "In my agony I said to myself, 'What is the use of this life?' Suddenly my eyes fell upon the sword that hangs in the temple. I decided to end my life with it there and then. Like a madman, I ran to it and seized it, and then I had a marvelous vision of the mother and fell down unconscious." Ramakrishna became overwhelmed, and before fainting, observed that to his spiritual sight, houses, doors, temples, and everything else around him vanished into an empty void. And what he saw in its place, he said, was a boundless, infinite, conscious sea of light. However far and in whatever direction I looked, I found a continuous succession of effulgent waves coming forward, raging and storming from all sides with a great speed. Very soon they fell upon me and made me sink into an unknown bottom. I panted, struggled, and then fell unconscious. I did not know what happened next in the external world, only that this day and the next slipped away into oblivion. I felt then the flowing of a current of intense bliss never experienced by me before, and I had the immediate knowledge of the light that was Mother. When he slowly regained his consciousness, he was found uttering the word "Mother" repeatedly in an aching voice. Thoroughly convinced of her existence, Ramakrishna now lived at her abode all of the time. And like a child disinclined to leave his mother, so was he to leave his divine mother. Hovering in an ocean of bliss, he guided the seekers to the mother, realizing that one cannot experience anywhere but from her. Inquired as to why he called the deity Mother, he answered, "'Cause the child is most free with its mother, and that she alone can cherish the child more than anyone else." The people around him noted that he was only engaged in talks of spiritual matters and never any worldly affairs. And while talking about Kali, the Divine Mother, he would simply cry. When someone once asked him about the worship of Kali Mata, he replied, "I do not worship Kali made of clay and straw. My mother is the conscious principle. My mother is pure Sat Chit Ananda, or eternity, knowledge, and bliss absolute. That which is infinite and deep and always dark-colored. The extensive sky is dark-colored, and so is the deep sea. My Kali is infinite, all-pervading, and indeed, consciousness itself." Rumors quickly spread that Ramakrishna had become unstable as a result of his spiritual practice. Ramakrishna's mother and his elder brother Rameshwar decided to get Ramakrishna married, thinking that marriage would be a good steadying influence upon him. by forcing him to accept the responsibility and to keep his attention on normal affairs rather than his spiritual practice and visions. Perhaps the young man could be saved from himself after all. Ramakrishna himself mentioned that they could find the bride at the home of Ramchandra Mukherjee. The 5-year-old bride, Saradamani, later known as Sarada Devi, was found, and the marriage was duly solemnized in 1859. Ramakrishna was 23 at this point, but this age difference for marriage was typical in the 19th century for rural Bengal. They later spent 3 months together when she was just 14 and Ramakrishna 32. Ramakrishna became a very influential figure in Sarada's life, and she became a strong follower of his teachings. After the marriage, Sarada joined Ramakrishna in Dakshineshwar at the age of 18. By the time his bride joined him, Ramakrishna had already embraced the monastic celibate life of a sannyasi. Thus, the marriage was never consummated. As a part of practicing the spiritual mood, called Mudara Bhava Sadhana, Ramakrishna dressed and behaved as a woman. One of his foremost later disciples explains. As a deep part of practicing the spiritual mood, called Madhura Bhava Sadhana, Ramakrishna dressed and behaved as a woman. Ramakrishna himself remarks, "How can a man conquer passion? He should assume the attitude of a woman. I spent many days as the handmaiden of God. I dressed myself in women's clothes, put on ornaments, and covered the upper part of my body with a scarf just like a woman. With the scarf on, I used to perform the evening worship before the image. Otherwise, how could I have kept my wife with me for 8 months? Both of us behaved as if we were the handmaidens of the Divine Mother." In 1860, Ramakrishna returned to Dakshineshwar and was again caught up in a spiritual tempest. Forgetting his wife, home, body, and even surroundings, he once described his experiences during the most tumultuous period of his life as such. "No sooner had I passed through one spiritual crisis than another took its place. It was like being in the midst of a whirlwind. Even my sacred thread was blown away. I could seldom keep hold of my dhoti. Sometimes I would open my mouth, and it would be as if my jaws reached from heaven to the other world. 'Mother!' I would cry desperately. I felt I had to pull her in, as a fisherman pulls in a fish with a dragnet. A small English boy, standing cross-legged against a tree, reminded me of Krishna, and I lost all consciousness. Sometimes I would share my food with a dog. My hair became matted. Birds would perch on my head and peck at the grains of rice which had lodged there during the worship. Snakes would crawl all over my motionless body. An ordinary man couldn't have borne even a quarter of that tremendous fervor of God. It would have burnt him to a crisp. I had no sleep at all for 6 long years. My eyes had lost the power of blinking. I stood in front of the mirror and tried to close my eyelids with my finger, and I couldn't. I got frightened, and I said to Mother, "Mother, is this what happens to those that call upon you? I surrendered myself to you, and you gave me this terrible disease." I used to shed tears, but then, suddenly, I'd be filled with ecstasy. I saw that my body didn't matter. It was of no importance, a mere trifle. Mother appeared to me and comforted me and freed me from my fear. Ramakrishna grew up practicing bhakti towards Lord Ram, and his duties as a priest at Dakshineshwar temple led him to practice worship of Mother Kali. While serving as the temple priest at Dakshineshwar, Sri Ramakrishna would encounter various itinerant sadhus who would visit his place and stay there for a while. Practicing their own modes of worship, Several of them initiated Ramakrishna into various schools of Sanatan Dharma, the everlasting truth, modernly known as Hinduism. In the year 1861, a female ascetic by the name of Bhairavi Brahmini initiated Ramakrishna into Tantra. Afterwards he took up the practice of a parent towards the divine child under a Vaishnava guru named Jatadhari. In 1865, a Vedanta monk named Totapuri initiated Ramakrishna into sannyas, and he attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi, considered as a culmination of all spiritual practices. Then, in 1866, Govinda Roy, a master who practiced Sufism, initiated Ramakrishna into Islam. Further, in 1873, Ramakrishna practiced Christianity and had the Bible read to him constantly. After more than a decade of sadhana in various religious pursuits, each culminating in the realization of God by that path, his personal practice is settled and is said to have remained as a bhavamukti, the level of blissful samadhi. He would meditate in a secluded place near the Dakshineshwar temple grounds, go to the Kali temple to offer flowers to the mother, and would wave incense to the assorted deities and religious figures whose pictures hung in his room. At some point, in the period between his vision of Kali and his marriage, Ramakrishna practiced Dasya Bhava, during which he worshipped Rama with the attitude of Hanuman, who is considered to be the ideal devotee and servant of Lord Ramachandra. According to Ramakrishna, towards the end of this sadhana, he had a vision of Sita, the consort of Ram, merging into his body. Ramani, an ascetic who used to carry with her a Raghuvir Shila, a stone idol representing Lord Rama and all Vaishnava deities, who was also well versed in the text of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism, stated that Ramakrishna was experiencing a phenomena that accompanies Mahabhava, the supreme attitude of loving devotion towards the divine. And quoting from the Bhakti Shastras, she stated that other religious figures like Radha and Chaitanya had similar experiences. The ancient art of Tantra focuses on the worship of Shakti, and the object of tantric training is to transcend the barriers between the holy and unholy as a means of achieving liberation, and to see all aspects of the natural world as manifestations of the divine Shakti. In the year 1861, an itinerant, middle-aged female ascetic initiated Ramakrishna into Tantra. Under her guidance, Ramakrishna went through 64 major tantric sadhanas, which were completed in 1863. For all the 64 sadhanas, he took only 3 days each to complete. He began with mantra rituals, such as japa and purarchana, and many other rituals designed to purify the mind and establish self-control. He later proceeded towards tantric sadhanas, which generally include a set of heterosexual practices called vamachara, left-hand path, which utilizes as a means of liberation activities like eating of parched grain, fish, and meat, along with drinking of wine and sexual intercourse. According to Ramakrishna and his biographers, Ramakrishna did not directly partake in the last 2 of these activities. Some even say that he didn't indulge in meat eating. All that he needed was a suggestion of them to produce the desired result. Ramakrishna acknowledged the left-hand tantric path, though it had undesirable features, as one of the valid roads of God realization. He consistently cautioned his devotees and disciples against associating with it. The old female ascetic also taught Ramakrishna the Kumari Puja, a form of ritual in which the virgin goddess is worshipped symbolically in the form of a young girl. Ramakrishna learned about Kundalini Yoga, which played an important part in the initial spiritual development of Ramakrishna. In 1864, Ramakrishna practiced Vatsalbhava under a Vaishnava guru, Jatathari. During this period, he worshipped a small metal image of Rama as a child, in the attitude of a mother. According to Ramakrishna, he could feel the presence of the child Rama as a living god in the metal image. Ramakrishna later engaged in the practice of Madhura Bhava, the attitude of the gopis and Radha towards Krishna. During the practice of this bhava, Ramakrishna dressed himself in women's garments for several days and regarded himself as one of the gopis of Vrindavan. According to Ramakrishna, Madhura Bhava is one of the ways to root out the idea of sex, which is seen as an impediment in spiritual life. According to Ramakrishna, towards the end of this sadhana, he attained Savakalpa Samadhi, God seen with form and qualities, vision and union with Krishna. Ramakrishna visited Nadia, the home of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, the 15th century founders of the Bengali Gaudiya Vaishnava school of Bhakti. He had an intense vision of two young boys merging into his body while he was crossing the river in a boat. After his vision of Kali, he is said to have cultivated Santa Bhava, the child attitude, towards Kali Mata. Towards the end of 1864, an itinerant monk named Tota Puri, a Naga Baba Sadhu, probably born in Punjab, arrived at Dakshineshwar while on a pilgrimage to various holy places in India. He was the head of a monastery and claimed leadership over some 700 sannyasis. Now these sannyasis are renowned as knowers of Brahman. Being thoroughly satisfied in themselves, they see the whole universe as Brahman and its manifestations through Maya. They are always on the move, traveling to different pilgrimage places, visiting various temples, and meeting holy men. Tota Puri was one such man who was on a similar visit when he arrived at Dakshineshwar. It was a traditional convention with him to not spend more than 3 days in any one place, and thus he arrived at the Kali temple to spend only 3 days there. On arriving at the temple ghat, Tota Puri, the tall and naked mendicant with tangled hair, caught a glimpse of the devotional face of Ramakrishna. With great amazement, he stepped up to him, inquisitively wondering, can there be such a fit aspirant to Vedantic discipline in Bengal, which, as we all know, is saturated with tantric practices? After observing Ramakrishna rigorously, he asked him, "You seem to be well qualified, brother. Do you live to practice Vedantic discipline?" Ramakrishna answered, "I know nothing of what I should do or not. My mother knows everything, and I shall do only as she commands." To which Tota replied, "Then go, ask your mother, and then come back, for I shall not stay here long." Ramakrishna silently went into the temple and returned back ecstatically with a joyful face and informed Tota about what the mother had said. "Go, my son, and learn it, for it is only to teach you that monk has come." Tota Maharaj, though fascinated at Ramakrishna's childlike simplicity, opined that his behavior was due to ignorance and false beliefs. His sharp intellect had no consideration for any deity except that of Ishwara of the Vedanta, who is regarded as the provider of results for all actions. The learned Pandit monk looked upon the Devi as a delusional figure and had no need for admitting her existence, much less worshipping her. He, however, did not say anything about it to Ramakrishna, believing that his impression of mind would soon come to pass away once he initiated him into sannyas. At the Panchavati, situated to the north of the temple garden, Ramakrishna was initiated into sannyas by Tota Puri. At the dawn of morning, in the auspicious moment of the Brahma Muhurta, with the Homa fire lighted, he was guided through the various rites and ceremonies involved in the procedure of becoming a sannyasi. In accordance with the Vedic scriptural injunctions and traditions of successive generations, he offered an oblation to be free from the desire of having spouse, children, wealth, admiration from people, a beautiful body, and so on, and renounced them all forever. He then also offered his sacred thread with the tuft of hair on his head as part of the oblation. An ochre cloth was then presented by Guru Tota to the sadhaka Ramakrishna, and he was instructed thus: "The one substance which alone is eternally pure, eternally awakened, unlimited by time, space, and causation, is absolutely real. Through Maya, which makes the impossible possible, causes by virtue of its influence that it is divided into names and forms. Brahman is never really so divided, for at the time of samadhi, not even a drop, so to say, of time and space and name and form produced by Maya is ever perceived. Whatever therefore is written within the bounds of name and form can never be absolutely real. Shun it by a good distance. Break the firm cage of name and form, and the overpowering strength of a lion will come out of it. Dive deep into the reality of the self, existing in yourself. Be one with it, with the help of samadhi. You will then see the universe consisting of name and form, and vanish, as it were, into the void. You will see the consciousness of the little. I merge in that of the immense. You will then see the universe consisting of name and form vanish, as it were, into the void. You will see the consciousness of the little merge into the immense, where it ceases to function, and you will have immediate knowledge of the indivisible existence, knowledge, and bliss as you yourself. Quoting scriptures, Tota explained to his disciple the need to attain the non-dual consciousness, as it alone can provide supreme everlasting bliss. Girding up his loins, he tried to enable his disciple to experience the gains from his lifelong sadhana right on that day, and attempted to make him attain samadhi himself. He asked his disciple to free his mind from all functions, and thus merge it in meditation upon the self. It so came to pass that when Ramakrishna sat down for meditation, he could by no means make his mind stop from functioning. He would withdraw his mind easily from everything, but as soon as he did, the intimately familiar form of the Divine Mother, Kali Mata, made up of pure consciousness, would appear before him as a living and moving being, and thus make him unmindful of his new renunciation. Every time he sat for meditation, this happened all over again, and becoming really hopeless, he said to his guru, "No, I am afraid, Master, it cannot be done. I cannot make the mind free from functioning, and thus force it to dive deep into self." Criticizing his disciple very harshly for his utter defiance, Tota now feverishly went about searching the hut, and finding a broken piece of glass, took it into his hand and forced it, needle-like, between his eyes in the position of the third eye, most brutally. "There," he said, "collect your mind here at this point with firm determination." Ramakrishna, now so determined, sat for meditation, and when, as previously, the form of the Divine Mother Kali appeared before his mind, he immediately cut her mentally in half with the sword of knowledge. There remained then no function in the mind, which transcended quickly the realm of names and forms, making him merge into pure samadhi. Now, being near his disciple for a long time, who had entered into samadhi, Tota came out of the hut and locked the door, lest anyone should enter in. Taking a seat outside, he awaited the call to open the door. Days passed, and nights rolled on, and at the end of 3 long days, when there was no call, surprised and curious, Tota entered the hut and found Ramakrishna sitting in the exact same position in which he had left him, with no sign of breath whatsoever, his face being calm and radiant, highly versed in the phenomena of samadhi. Tota was astonished and thought, "Is it indeed true, what I see enacted before me? Has this great soul actually realized in a day what I could experience only by the fruit of some 40 years of severe austerity and penances?" In disbelief, he now began to examine and inspect in detail all the signs that manifested within the body of the new sannyasi, Ramakrishna. Of Ramakrishna, he particularly examined if his heart was indeed still beating, whether there was the smallest amount of breath coming from his nostrils. He touched and checked his body, which was now in a firm posture like a piece of fixed wood. Seeing no signs of change, nor any return to normal consciousness, Tota, brimming with joy and awe, exclaimed, "Is it in truth samadhi? Is it the nirvikalpa samadhi, the ultimate result attained through the path of knowledge spoken of in the Vedanta? How very strange is the maya of the divine." He then began the process of bringing back his disciple to normal consciousness by chanting the mantra Hari Om, the sound of which reverberated the entire space around the Panchavati. Now, after the experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Ramakrishna realized that the great weaver of Maya is none other than Kali, the Divine Mother herself. That she projects it out of her will, like a spider spins a web out of itself, and she can no longer be differentiated from Brahman. Then can the power of burning from fire. Now, after the experience of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Ramakrishna realized that the great weaver of Maya is none other than Kali Mata, the Divine Mother herself, that she projects it in and out of her like a spider spins a web out of itself, and she can no longer be differentiated from Brahman. Then can the power of burning from fire. Observing Maya like a majestic and enigmatic statement of divinity, he was filled with unutterable reverence and love for it, unlike the disdain as seen in other realized souls. He observed Maya functions in the world in 2 ways, and is then named Avidya Maya or Vidya Maya, considering the Avidya Maya to be represented by the lower forces like evil, greed, cruelty, etc., which would contain a man to the lower level of existence, and Vidya Maya to be represented by the higher forces of kindness, love, devotion, compassion, all of which would elevate a man to the highest levels of existence. He realized that these 2 facets of Maya to be the 2 forces of creation, the 2 powers of Kali, who stands beyond them both, like the beaming sun behind the clouds of different colors and patterns, and shines through them all. Instead of looking upon the world as an illusion of Brahman, as per Vedanta, Ramakrishna looked upon it as the manifestation of the Divine Holy Mother. Having seen the rapid progress of Ramakrishna on the Vedantic path, Tota Puri now started to have many serious discussions with him over the devotion to the Divine Mother and the Vedantic Brahman. During the course of one such lively discussion, a servant of the temple garden visited him and took a piece of charcoal so as to lit his tobacco from the pit of the sacred Duni fire, which was lit by the great ascetic himself. Tota flew into a rage and began to threaten the man, when Ramakrishna, who was sitting aside, fell on the ground rolling in laughter, seeing how powerful the influence of Maya is over the behavior of one so divine as Tota himself. It's all well and good to talk about Brahman and all the people being its manifestations, but to forget everything and get angry at this man. Tota, now feeling embarrassed, vowed never to be angry again under any circumstances. Ramakrishna would go on to say, caught in the net of the 5 elements, Brahman weeps, and that no amount of self-knowledge will make the life of a man better until the grace of God is bestowed upon him through the power of Maya. After staying in the Bengali province for enough period of time, Tota Puri, who until then never had any illness in his life, caught up dysentery, which made his life quite miserable. Leave and move away from Ramakrishna. But every time he did, so he would begin forgetting talking about it, or feeling stopped from speaking by someone within him, and would go back hesitantly. Ramakrishna, with the help of Mathur, arranged for his special diet and medicine, but all to no avail. Being well versed in meditation, he would at will merge his mind into samadhi, and thus not feel the pain from his body. But on one night the pain in his intestines became so intense that his mind could no longer merge into samadhi. He then decided to drown his cage of bones and flesh in the river Ganga and be forever free. He thus set out, and on reaching a bank of the river, started to walk into it, and kept walking further all the way to almost the other side of the bank. Feeling baffled that there seemed to be not enough water in the river to drown himself, he looked back to find a dazzling vision of the Divine Mother, the one beyond Turiya, filling up all the space around him. Realizing that the Brahman he was worshipping all his life was none other than the Divine Mother herself, with a grateful heart, he set back on the same path from which he came, and returned to spend the remaining night meditating on the Divine Mother near the Duni. When Ramakrishna met him in the morning to inquire about his health, he found him to be a totally different person, with indeed no more illness. Reflecting over how imprudent he was not to ever accept the Divine Mother, Tota explained to him the events that transpired the night before, and that, by the grace of the Mother, he was now free from his disease. Ramakrishna, with a smile, said, "Well, you did not accept the Mother before and argued with me saying that Shakti was unreal. But you have now seen her yourself, and direct experience has got the better of your arguments, my brother. She has convinced me already of the fact that just as fire and its burning power are not different, so Brahman and the power of Brahman are non-different, but one and the same." Tota then asked Ramakrishna to exhort her to give him permission to leave, as he now realized that everything was under her will. He, who had never spent more than 3 days at any one place, had spent 11 months here. Both of them then visited the temple, and Tota, who until that time considered the image of Devi as a delusion, bowed down deeply in front of her idol, along with Ramakrishna. A few days later, he took leave and left Dakshineshwar. It was his first and last visit to that holy place. Some time after the departure of Tota Puri from Dakshineshwar, Ramakrishna, owing to his lack of restraining elements in life or desires in the world, decided to dwell on the plane of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. As he attempted to do so, once again, the form of the Divine Mother, beautiful, more beautiful than ever and most, started appearing in front of him, and he, not having the heart to leave her behind, would go ahead and return back, after much internal deliberation, and with great courage, he again, while meditating, took up knowledge as the sword, and cut her in two. There was nothing left in the mind then, and it rushed up quickly to the complete stage of Nirvikalpa. Ramakrishna remained in the Nirvikalpa state continually for a period of some 6 months, a state of perception from which no ordinary person returns back, as the body would fall dead after 21 days, like a dry leaf from a tree. He remained unconscious to the outer world throughout this period, and was, to all intents and purposes, like a dead man, with matted hair and flies moving through his mouth and nostrils. He might indeed have passed away then, if not for the untiring efforts of an unknown young monk who happened to be present at Dakshineshwar at the time, and who, upon recognizing the state in which Ramakrishna was, thought that his body must be kept alive for the betterment of the world and the work of the Mother, who still had much to do within this earthly realm. Toward that end, he made attempts every day to bring him back to consciousness by beating him severely with a stick, and then feeding him in the resulting fleeting moments of consciousness, which, though they appeared very rarely, but for a few moments on some days. This period of Nirvikalpa Samadhi came to an end after Ramakrishna received a command from the Mother to remain thus in Bhava Mukha, a state of consciousness bordering between being absorbed in the Absolute and remaining in the relative material world for the sake of enlightening others. This was followed by an affliction with a severe bout of dysentery, with an intense pain in the intestines continually for about 6 months, after which gradually his mind returned back to normal consciousness. Before that it used to rise and be fixated at the Nirvikalpa stage every now and then. He then firmed his consciousness at the 6th chakra of Tantra, and lived there with his consciousness oscillating between being absorbed in the impersonal Absolute or remaining in personal devotion to the Mother. Later in his life, it was observed that while talking about or listening to subjects relating to God, Ramakrishna, with his face beaming a smile and body turning radiant, would become noticeably stiff and unconscious. When one of his disciples asked him why it had to happen like this, and what does he experience in that state, Ramakrishna smiled and replied, "It is called Samadhi, the culmination of meditation. I borrow 1/16th part of the mind from the Divine Mother, and talk and laugh with you, but the remaining portion rests with the Mother, meditating on her real essence as existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. When I talk or hear about the Mother, the whole mind goes to the Absolute, and Samadhi immediately ensues. Do you know what Samadhi really is? It is complete absorption in Brahman. Do you know how I feel at this time? Suppose there is a basin of water on the seashore, and a small fish is confined within it. If the basin is accidentally broken, the fish finds its way to the unfathomable ocean. It then frolics in the height of joy, doesn't it? Similarly, during Samadhi, my mind leaps like that. In other words, there is no body consciousness, and the soul merges in the higher self, the Paramatman, in the 1,000-petaled lotus of the head, and experiences unspeakable bliss. That experience sends a wave of divine bliss to the face, and the body becomes naturally radiant. This very self, then, becomes Shiva, the Absolute. Now the periods of Samadhi would later become a regular part of his life, and people near him used to find him in a state of samadhi every now and then, sometimes for almost 24 hours a day. Once, a government official found him remaining in a state of ecstasy straight for 3 days and 3 nights. When found deeply absorbed in samadhi for a long period, his devotees would rub cow ghee on his spine from neck to lower back, and on his knees down to the soles of his feet, pulling in a downward direction, so as to bring him back to the plane of normal consciousness. Ramakrishna often used to say that his natural tendency was to drift towards the nirvikalpa plane, and once in samadhi, he would not be inclined to come back to the plane of earthly consciousness, but would return for the sake of his devotees, and sometimes even this was not enough. So he would fill his mind with trivial desires like, I will smoke tobacco, I would like to drink some water, perhaps I will take this, I will see so-and-so, maybe I will talk. And by repeatedly saying such things to his mind, he would gradually return to the plane of bodily consciousness. He would later often tell his devotees, tie the knowledge of non-duality in the corner of your cloth, and then do whatever you want. In 1866, Govinda Roy, a Hindu man who was previously initiated into Islam, initiated Ramakrishna through his regular visits to Dakshineshwar. Speculation is that the figure was perhaps Muhammad himself. During these accounts, Ramakrishna devoutedly repeated the name of Allah, and felt disinclined even to see the images of Hindu gods and goddesses, much less worship them, for the Hindu way of thinking had disappeared altogether from his mind. After 3 days of practice, he had a vision of a radiant personage with grave countenance and white beard resembling the prophet, and merging with his body. He opined that this vision be of the all-pervasive Brahman with attributes. After the experience of practicing Islam, Ramakrishna expressed that knowledge of Vedanta which can make Hindus and Muslims sympathetic to one another. He spoke thus, there is, as it were, a mountain of difference between them. Their thoughts and faiths, actions and behavior have remained quite unintelligible to one another in spite of their living together for so long a time. At the end of 1873, Ramakrishna started the practice of Christianity. After one of his devotees, named Shambhu Chandra Malik, read the Bible to him, he became well acquainted with the life and teachings of Jesus. Once, when the Bible was being read out to him from the very beginning, there were references to the doctrine of sin. After hearing a little, and finding that it talked of nothing but sin, he refused to listen to it further, saying, just as in the case of the snake bite, if the patient can be made to believe that there is no poison at all, he will be all right. Similarly, if one constantly thinks, I have taken the name of the Lord, so I am sinless, that one becomes pure. In 1874, Ramakrishna experienced a strange vision at the parlor of Jadu Malik's garden home, situated to the south of the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. He was sitting there looking keenly at the picture of Madonna and child hanging on the wall, when all of a sudden he saw it come to life with effulgent rays of light emerging from the head and merging into his heart. A few days later, while walking in the Panchavati, he reportedly had a vision of Jesus coming towards him, embracing, and then merging into his body. At this moment, he reportedly lost his normal consciousness and remained there for some time, identified with the all-pervasive Brahman with attributes. In 1875, Ramakrishna met with the influential Brahmo Samaj leader Keshab Chandra Sen. Keshab had accepted Christianity and separated from the Adi Brahmo Samaj. Formerly, Keshab had rejected idolatry, but under the influence of Ramakrishna he accepted Hindu polytheism and established the new dispensation, based on Ramakrishna's principles of worship God as mother. All religions are true, and assimilation of Hindu polytheism into Brahmoism. Keshab also published Ramakrishna's teachings in the journals of New Dispensation over a period of several years, which was instrumental in bringing Ramakrishna to the attention of a wider audience, especially Europeans residing in India. Following Keshab, other Brahmos such as Vijay Krishna Goswami started to admire Ramakrishna, propagate his ideals, and reorient their socio-religious outlook. Among the Europeans who were influenced by Ramakrishna was Principal Dr. William Hastie of the Scottish Church College in Calcutta. In the course of explaining the world trance in the poem The Excursion by William Wordsworth, Hastie told his students that if they wanted to know its real meaning, they should go to Ramakrishna of Dakshineshwar. This prompted some of his students, including Narendranath Dutta, later Swami Vivekananda, to visit Ramakrishna. Despite initial reservations, Vivekananda became Ramakrishna's most influential follower, popularizing a modern interpretation of Indian traditions which harmonized Tantra, Yoga, and Advaita Vedanta. Vivekananda established the Ramakrishna Order, which originally spread its mission post throughout the world. Monastic disciples who renounced their family and became the earliest monks of the Ramakrishna Order included Rakhal Chandra Ghosh, Swami Brahmananda, Kali Prasad Chandra, Swami Abhinanda, Tarkanath Ghoshal, Swami Shivananda, Swami Turiyananda, and many others. In the beginning of 1885, Ramakrishna suffered from clergyman's throat, which gradually developed into throat cancer. But when his condition aggravated, he was relocated to a large garden home at Kosipur on 11 December 1885. During his last days, he was looked after by monastic disciples and Sarada Devi. Ramakrishna was advised by the doctors to keep the strictest silence, but ignoring their advice, he incessantly conversed with visitors. According to traditional accounts, before his death, Ramakrishna transferred his spiritual powers to Vivekananda and assured him of his avataric status, requesting other monastic disciples to look upon him in the same light. Ramakrishna asked Vivekananda to look after the welfare of the disciples, saying, "Keep my boys together," and asked him to teach them well. Ramakrishna's condition gradually worsened, and he died in the early morning hours of August 16, 1886, in the garden house. According to his disciples, this was Mahasamadhi. His last word, on one account, was Ma. After the death of their master, monastic disciples led by Vivekananda formed a fellowship at a half-ruined house at Banagar, near the river Ganga, with the financial assistance of the household disciples. This became the first mott, or monastery, of the disciples who constituted the first Ramakrishna order. Ramakrishna is an important cultural figure in the Bengali Renaissance of the 19th-20th century. Several organizations have been established in his name. The Ramakrishna Math and Mission is the main organization, founded by Swami Vivekananda in 1897. The mission conducts extensive work in healthcare, disaster relief, rural management, tribal welfare, and higher education. The movement is considered one of the revitalization movements of India. Other organizations include the Ramakrishna Vedanta Society, founded in 1923, the Ramakrishna Saradamath, founded by a rebel group in 1929, and the Ramakrishna Vivekananda Mission formed by Swami Nityananda in 1976. Rabindranath Tagore wrote a poem on Ramakrishna. To Ramakrishna Paramahansa Deva, diverse courses of worship from varied springs of fulfillment have mingled in your meditation. The manifold revelation of the joy of the infinite has given form to a shrine of unity in your life, where from far and near arrive salutations to which I join my own. During the 1937 Parliament of Religions, which was held at the Ramakrishna Mission in Calcutta, Tagore acknowledged that Ramakrishna was indeed a great saint. In addition, Max Muller, Mahatma Gandhi, Sri Aurobindo, and Leo Tolstoy have acknowledged Ramakrishna's great contribution to humanity. Ramakrishna's influence is also seen in the works of great artists, such as Franz Dvorak, 1862 to 1927, and more contemporaneously, Philip Glass. Part 2. Quotations. Ramakrishna. Sugar and sand may be mixed together, but the ant rejects the sand and goes off with the sugar. So pious men lift the good from the bad. As a toy fruit or a toy elephant reminds us of the real fruit and the living animal, so do the images that are worshipped remind us of the God who is formless and eternal. Iron appears as red-hot in the furnace, but becomes black as soon as it is taken out. In the same way, worldly men are full of religious emotion if they are in the temple, or in the society of the pious, but no sooner do they leave these associations than the flood of devotion in them subsides. When a certain quantity of milk is mixed with double the quantity of water, it requires a good deal of time and labor to condense it. The mind of the worldly man is diluted with the filthy water of impure thoughts, and he has to work long and hard to purify it. You can see many stars in the sky at night, but not when the sun rises. Can you, therefore, say that there are no stars in the heavens during the day? O man, because you cannot find God in the days of your ignorance, say not that there is no God. Lovers of God do not belong to any caste. Butter churned early in the morning is the best, and that churned after sunrise is really not so good. Addressing the young disciples, the Master used to say, "You are like butter churned in the early morning. My housekeeper disciples are like butter churned late in the day." Sunlight is one and the same wherever it falls, but only a bright surface like that of water or of a mirror reflects it fully. So is the divine light. It falls equally and impartially on all hearts, but the pure and pious hearts of holy men receive and reflect that light well. Common men talk bagfuls of religion, but do not practice even a grain of it. The wise man speaks but a little, even though his whole life is religion expressed in action. When you are engaged in devotional practices, keep aloof from those who scoff at them, and from those who ridicule the piety and the pious. Women are, all of them, the veritable images of Shakti. Knowledge leads to unity, but ignorance to diversity. Never get into your head that your faith alone is true and that every other is false. Know for certain that God without form is real and that God with form is real also. Then hold fast to whichever faith appeals to you. Through selfless work, love of God grows within the heart. Then, through His grace, one realizes Him in the course of time. God can be seen. One can talk to Him, as I am now talking to you. Many are the names of God, and infinite the forms that lead us to know Him. In whatsoever name or form you desire to call Him, in that very name and form you will see Him. Rainwater never stands on high ground, but runs down to the lowest level. So also the mercy of God remains in the hearts of the lowly, but drains off from those who are vain and proud. As you pray to God for devotion, so also pray that you may not find fault with anyone. Men are like pillowcases. The color of one may be red, that of another blue, and that of a third black, but all contain the same cotton within. So it is with man. One is beautiful, yet another is ugly, a third holy, and a fourth wicked, but the divine being dwells within them all. It is easy to talk religion, but difficult to practice it. We laugh at the efforts of the musk deer to find the source of the scent which comes from itself, and despair at our efforts to find the peace which is our essence. You should not feel that your path is the only right one, and that other paths are wrong. You mustn't bear malice towards anyone about anything, ever. When the flower blooms, the bees come uninvited. As long as I live, so too shall I learn. If you spent 1/10 of the time you devoted to distractions, like chasing women or making money, to spiritual practice, you would be enlightened in just a few short years. As a piece of rope, when burnt, retains its form, but cannot serve to bind, so is the ego which is burnt by the fire of supreme knowledge. God is in all men, but all men are not in God. That is why we suffer. As a lamp does not burn without oil, so a man cannot live without God. When the flower blooms, the bees come. As the water in the ocean is now calm, and next agitated into waves, so too are Brahman and Maya. The ocean in the tranquil state is Brahman, and in the turbulent state, Maya. Attribute to yourself the bliss of God consciousness, then you too will experience ineffable joy. The bliss of God consciousness always existed in you. It is only hidden by the veiling and projecting power of Maya, illusion, or that which is not. The less you are attached to the material world, the more you will love God. There are signs by which you can know whether a man has truly seen God. One of these signs is joy. There is no hesitancy in him. He is like the ocean. The waves and sounds are on the surface, but below are the profound depths. You talk about the virtues of a person so long as you haven't seen him, but no sooner does he appear before you than all such talk stops. You are beside yourself with joy simply to be with him. You feel overwhelmed by simply conversing with him. You don't talk about his virtues anymore. The nearer you approach to God, the more you feel his love. As the river approaches the ocean, it increasingly feels the flow of the eternal tide. Why then do I take care of the body? It is to enjoy God, to sing his name and glories, and to go with him, and to go about visiting his jnanis and bhaktas. With the dawn of self-knowledge, ignorance about self is removed. Like the Akasha, Brahman is without any modification. Brahman itself is beyond the three gunas, goodness, passion, and ignorance. What Brahman is cannot be described. It is beyond words. That which remains after everything is eliminated by the Vedantic process of not this, neti, neti, and which is of the nature of bliss, that is Brahman. The jnani experiences God consciousness within himself. To him the whole universe is illusory, like a dream. He is always established in the reality of self. The non-dualists say, that is, I am the Supreme Self. This is according to the view of the sannyasis of the Vedantic school. According to the non-dualistic, the self is unattached. Good and bad, virtue and vice, and the other pairs of opposites cannot go in any way to injure the self. Though they undoubtedly afflict those who have identified themselves with their bodies. Smoke soils the wall, certainly, but it cannot in any way affect Akasha or space. Children, please, never fight in the name of religion. All of these are true. There is complete harmony in the soul. All of them are based on certain noble, eternal principles. The religions are complementary, not supplementary. different paths will lead to the same goal. Destroy the evil tendencies in man like lust, greed, and anger, and not the man. These tendencies are the real kafirs, and not the man. In the scriptures you will find the way to realize God. But after getting all the information about the path, you must begin the work. Only then can you attain your goal. Do all your duties in the world, but keep your mind always upon God. It is the mind that makes one wise or ignorant, bound or emancipated. Those who see the invisible can do the impossible. If the devotee is sincere, then God, who is the inner guide of all, will certainly reveal to the devotee his true nature. The winds of grace are always blowing, but we must raise our sails. If you meditate on your ideal, you will acquire its nature. Do all of your duties, but keep ever your mind upon God. If you must be mad, be it not for the things of the world, be mad for the love of God. Do not let worldly thoughts and anxieties disturb your mind. Do everything in the proper time, and let your mind be always fixed upon the supreme reality of God. The sun can give heat and light to the whole world, but cannot do so when the clouds shut out its rays. Similarly, as long as egotism veils the heart, God cannot shine upon it. Spirituality automatically leads to humility. When a flower develops into a fruit, the petals drop off on its own. When one becomes spiritual, the ego vanishes gradually on its own. A tree laden with fruits always bends low. Humility is a sign of greatness. All religions are true. God can be reached by different religions. You should know that. Many rivers flow by many ways, but yet they all fall into the sea. They are all one. There are three kinds of love: unselfish, mutual, and selfish. The unselfish love is of the highest kind. The lover only minds the welfare of the beloved and does not care for his own suffering. In mutual love, the lover not only wants the happiness of his beloved, but also has an eye towards his own happiness also. It is middling. The selfish love is the lowest. It only looks towards its own happiness, no matter whether the beloved suffers real or not. If you meditate upon your ideal, you will acquire its nature. If you think of God day and night, you will acquire the nature of God. Only two kinds of people can attain self-knowledge. Those who are not encumbered at all with learning, that is to say, whose minds are not overcrowded with thoughts borrowed from others, and those who, upon studying all the scriptures and sciences, have come to realize that they know nothing. One may read the Bhagavad by the light of a lamp, and another may commit a forgery by that very light, but the lamp is unaffected, The sun sheds its light on the wicked as well as the virtuous. You speak of doing good in the world. Is the world such a small thing? And who are you, pray, to do good to the world? First, realize God. See him by means of spiritual discipline. If he imparts power unto you, you can do good to others. Otherwise, not. The man who works for others without any selfish motive really does good to himself. If you must be mad, be not mad for the things of this world. Be mad for the love of God. Through selfless work, love of God grows in heart. When divine vision is attained, it appears equal, and there remains no distinction of good or bad, high or low. If you desire to be pure, have firm faith, and slowly go on with your devotional practices without wasting your energy in useless scriptural discussions and arguments. Your little brain will otherwise be muddied. Many good sayings are to be found in holy books, but merely reading them will not make one religious, or indeed spiritual. Sri Sarada Devi, the Holy Mother, 1853 to 1920. When Holy Mother came to Dakshineshwar at the age of 16, Sri Ramakrishna asked her whether she had come to pull him down to a worldly life. Without hesitation, she said, "No, I am here to help you realize your chosen ideal." From then on, Holy Mother lived with Sri Ramakrishna as his spiritual companion, devoted wife, disciple, and always the nun. She was the embodiment of purity itself. Her mind was never sullied by the faintest breath of worldliness, even though she lived with Sri Ramakrishna for the greater part of 14 years. She never missed communion with God, whom she described as lying in the palm of her hand, though she was engaged day and night in various activities. Holy Mother was an unusual awakener of souls. With her disciples she served as teacher, dissolving their doubts, as mother, who through love and compassion won their hearts, and as the divinity, who assured them of liberation. Herself nearly illiterate, through simple words she taught them the most profound truths. Her affectionate maternal love tamed their rebellious spirits, and her great power lay in her solicitude for all. Often she said, "I am the mother. Who will look after them if I do not?" She encouraged them when they were depressed because of slow spiritual progress, and she took upon herself their sins and iniquities, suffering greatly on that account. Holy Mother was conscious of her divine nature, but she rarely expressed this awareness. For many years Sri Ramakrishna practiced great austerities and formally renounced the world, but Holy Mother lived as a simple householder, surrounded by quarrelsome and greedy relatives. As a teacher she taught the realization of God alone is real, and that everything else is impermanent. The human body, so treasured by most people, survives cremations as only 3 pounds of ash. Holy Mother, humility itself, claimed that she was in no way different from the other devotees of the Master. Her disciples felt awed and uplifted when she blessed them by touching their head with the same hand which had touched the feet of God. She was fully aware of her disciples' present limitations and their future possibilities. No one went away from her with a downcast heart. The outstanding virtues of all womanhood are courage, serenity, self-control, sweetness, compassion, wisdom, and an intuitive relationship with God. Holy Mother possessed all these virtues. Since the acquisition of such gifts is the dream of all women, Holy Mother may aptly be seen as the symbol of aspiration of women everywhere. Mother Sarada Quotations. I am the mother of the wicked as I am the mother of the virtuous, so never fear. Whenever you are in distress, say to yourself, I have a mother. The happiness of the world is transitory. The less you become attached to the world, the more you will enjoy peace of mind. Let me tell you how to love all equally. Do not demand anything of those you love. If you make demands, some will give you more and some less. In that case, you will love more those who give you more and less those who give you less. Thus your love will not be the same for all. You will not be able to love all impartially. You see, my son, it is not a fact that you will never face danger. Difficulties will always come, but they do not last forever. You will see that they pass away like water under a bridge. Don't be afraid. Human birth is full of suffering, and one has to endure everything patiently, taking the name of God upon your lips. Not even God in human form can escape the sufferings of the body and mind. God cannot be realized without love. Yes, sincere love. We suffer as a result of our own actions. It is unfair to blame anybody for it. One should not hurt others even by words. One must not speak an unpleasant truth unnecessarily. No one can suffer for all time. No one will spend his days on this earth in suffering. Every action brings its own result, and one gets one opportunities accordingly. We have to surrender ourselves completely to the Lord with our faith and devotion in Him. Serve others to the best of our capacity, and never be a source of sorrow to anybody. Glory be to God. Realization of God cannot be achieved without a static love for Him. When one realizes God, He grants knowledge and illumination from within. One knows it's oneself. In the fullness of one's spiritual realization, one will find that He who resides in one's heart resides in the hearts of everyone else as well. My child, I bless you from my heart that you will live long, attain devotion, and enjoy peace. Peace is the principal thing. One needs peace alone. As you smell the fragrance of a flower, or the smell of sandalwood by rubbing it against a stone, so you obtain spiritual awakening by constantly thinking of God. I can never refuse anyone who addresses me as Mother. One must be patient like the earth. What inequities are being perpetuated on her, yet she quietly endures it all. Is faith so cheap, my child? Faith is the last word. If one has faith, the goal is practically reached. One should perform even an insignificant task with respect. Pray to God with tears in your eyes whenever you want illumination, or find yourself faced with any doubt or difficulty. The Lord will remove all of your impurities, assuage your mental anguish, and verily give you enlightenment. The whole world is a dream. Even this waking state is a dream. What you dreamed last night does not exist now. As long as a man has desires, there is no end to transmigration. It is the desires alone that make him take one body after another. There will be rebirth for a man if he even has a desire to eat a piece of candy. Don't puzzle your mind with too many inquiries. One finds it difficult to put one single thing into practice, but dares invite distraction by filling the mind with too many things. Open your grief-stricken heart to the Lord. Weep and sincerely pray, O Lord, draw me towards you. Give me, please, peace of mind. By doing so constantly, you will gradually attain peace of mind. What an illusion Mahamaya has conjured up. Here is the infinite world, and what one claims as his possessions will all be left behind at death. Still, men cannot understand this simple truth. Ordinary human love results in misery. Love for God brings blessedness. Even avatars, saints, yogis, and sages have to undergo the ordeal of suffering, for they take upon themselves the burden of sins of omission and commission of ordinary human beings, and thereby sacrifice themselves for the good of humanity. A person may have no relatives anywhere, but Mahamaya, so clever, may make him keep a cat, and thus make him and keep him forever worldly. This is how she plays. I tell you one thing. If you want peace of mind, do not find fault with others. One suffers as a result of one's own actions. So instead of blaming others for such suffering, one should pray to the Lord and, depending entirely upon His grace, try to bear them patiently, with forbearance under all circumstances. Give up this dry discussion, this hodgepodge of philosophy. Who has ever been able to know God by reasoning, or even less, bickering? Even great sages like Sukha and Vyas are at best like big ants trying to carry away a few grains of sugar from a large he. The conjunction of the day and the night is the most auspicious time for calling upon God. The mind remains pure at this time, and the world quiet. The world is going on because not all can be freed of desires. People with desires are to be born again and again and again. People complain about their griefs and sorrows, and how they pray to God but find no relief from pain. But grief itself is a gift from God. It is a symbol of His compassion. If you do a good act, it will cancel the effect of your evil deeds. If one prays, take the name of God and think upon Him. The effects of evil are then immediately cancelled. If one calls upon Him repeatedly, He becomes compassionate, and so a devoted attachment comes into being. This love for love's sake should be hidden from all eyes of the worldly man. This world is moving like a wheel. That indeed is the last birth in which one gets completely rid of all desires. The grace of God is the thing that is needful. One should pray for the grace of God. As clouds are blown away by the wind, the thirst for material pleasure will be driven away by the utterance of the Lord's name. What else does one obtain by realization of God? Does one grow two horns? No. The mind becomes pure, quiescent, and peaceful. And through a pure mind, one attains knowledge and awakening. The Mother of the universe is the mother of all. From her have come out both good and evil. The creation is full of grief. How can one understand joy if there is no sorrow? And how can everyone be happy at the same time? Please, in your spiritual search, be above all things reasonable. In the course of eternal time, you may be surprised to learn that one does not even feel the existence of God. After attaining enlightenment, one sees that all gods and goddesses are simply Maya, or illusion, that which is not. Rebirth is inevitable as long as one has desires. It is like taking the soul from one pillowcase and putting it into another. Only one or two out of many men can be found who are free from all desires. He who will pray to God eagerly will most certainly see Him. In one word, one should desire of God desirelessness. For desire alone is the root of all suffering, as the Buddha himself said. It is the cause of repeated birth and death. Of birth, death, disease, old age, and suffering. It is the obstacle in the way of liberation, and it can be avoided. He who has really prayed to the Master even once has nothing to fear, not even of death. Why do people argue? Even the wisest of men have not found God through argument, or even bickering. Is God the subject for argument? Is he that small that he can be contained in the abusive words of one man to another? Does one get real faith merely by studying books? Too much reading creates confusion. The Master used to say that one should learn from the Scriptures that God alone is real and the world is illusory. That is all. He who thinks always of the Lord, in which way can evil come to him? No doubt, God alone has become all of these objects animate and inanimate. But in the relative world, all beings act and suffer according to their past karma and innate tendencies. Swami Vivekananda, born Narendranath Datta, was an Indian Hindu monk and philosopher. He was the chief disciple of the 19th century Indian mystic Ramakrishna. Swamiji was a key figure in the introduction of the Vedic darsanas, teachings and practices of the Vedanta and yoga to the Western world, and is credited with raising interfaith awareness and bringing Hinduism to the status of a major world religion during the late 19th century. He was a major force in the contemporary Hindu reform movements in India, and contributed to the concept of nationalism in colonial India. He is perhaps best known for his speech, which began with the words, "Sisters and Brothers of America," at the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago in 1893. Born into an aristocratic Bengali Kshatriya family of Calcutta, Vivekananda was inclined towards spirituality. He was greatly influenced by his guru Ramakrishna, from whom he learnt that all living beings were an embodiment of the divine self. Therefore, service to God could be rendered by service to human and animal kind. After Ramakrishna's death, Vivekananda toured the Indian subcontinent extensively and acquired first-hand knowledge of the conditions prevailing in British India. He later traveled to the United States, representing Mother India at the 1893 Parliament of the World's Religions. Swami Vivekananda conducted hundreds of public and private lectures and classes, disseminating the tenets of Vedic philosophy in the United States, England, and Europe. In 1881, Narendra first met Ramakrishna, who became his spiritual focus after his own father died in 1884. The young man's first introduction to Ramakrishna occurred in a literature class at General Assembly's institution, where he heard Professor William Hastie lecturing on William Wordsworth's poem, The Excursion. While explaining the word trance in the poem, Hasty suggested that his students visit Ramakrishna of Dakshineshwar to understand the true meaning. This prompted some of his students, including Narendra, to visit Sri Ramakrishna. In late 1881 or perhaps early 1882, Narendra went to Dakshineshwar with two friends and he met Ramakrishna. This meeting proved to be a turning point in his life. Although he did not initially accept Ramakrishna as his teacher, and indeed rebelled against his ideas, he was attracted by his personality and began to frequently visit him at Dakshineshwar. He initially saw Ramakrishna's ecstasies and visions as mere figments of imagination, or perhaps hallucinations. As a member of the Brahmo Samaj, he opposed idol worship, polytheism, and Ramakrishna's worship of Kali. He even rejected the Advaita Vedanta, or identity with the Absolute, as blasphemy and madness, and often ridiculed the idea. Narendra's father's sudden death in 1884 left the family bankrupt and creditors demanding repayment of loans, while relatives threatened to evict his family from their ancestral home. Narendra, once the son of a well-to-do family, became one of the poorest students in his college. He unsuccessfully tried to find work, but he found solace in Ramakrishna, and his visits to Dakshineshwar increased. In 1885, Ramakrishna developed throat cancer. It was at this time that Narendra and several other close disciples received the ochre robes from Ramakrishna, forming his first monastic order. There he was taught that service to men was the most effective worship of God. After Ramakrishna's death, his devotees and admirers stopped supporting his disciples. Unpaid rent accumulated, and Narendra and the other disciples had to find a new place to live. Many returned home, adopting the grihastha, or householder way of life. Narendra, however, decided to convert a dilapidated house into a new mutt or monastery for the remaining disciples. Now named Swami Vivekananda, he and the other disciples used to spend many hours practicing meditation and religious austerities in their new temple. Swami Vivekananda started his iconic journey to the West on May 31, 1893, and visited several cities in Japan, including Nagasaki, Yokohama, Osaka, Kyoto, and Tokyo. He also stopped briefly in China and Canada en route to the United States, reaching Chicago on July 30, 1893. It was there he gave his famous speech at the Parliament of Religions, introducing himself as a monk of the Order of Sannyasi, founded by Sankar. On July 4, 1902, now back in India, Vivekananda awoke early, went to the monastery, and meditated for 3 hours. At 7 p.m., Vivekananda went to his room, asking not to be disturbed. He passed away at 9:20 p.m. while meditating intensely. According to his disciples, Swami Vivekananda attained Mahasamadhi. The rupture of a blood vessel in his brain was reported as a possible cause of death. His disciples, however, believed that the rupture was due to an opening in the crown of the head being pierced when he attained Mahasamadhi. Vivekananda fulfilled his earlier prophecy that he would not live to see 40 years. He was cremated on a sandalwood funeral pyre on the bank of the Ganges River, opposite where Ramakrishna was cremated just 16 years earlier. Part 3. Quotations. Swami Vivekananda. We are what our thoughts have made us, so take care, please, what you think. Words are secondary, thoughts live, they travel far. Whatever you think, that you will be. If you think yourself weak, weak, you shall be. If you think yourself strong, strong you will be. If you think yourselves impure, impure you will be. But if you think yourselves pure, then pure will you be. To succeed, you must have tremendous perseverance, tremendous will. I will drink the ocean, says the persevering soul. At my will, mountains will crumble up. Have that sort of energy, that sort of will. Work hard, and you will reach your goal. Let people say whatever they like. Stick to your own convictions, and rest assured the world will be at your feet. They say, have faith in this fellow or that fellow, but I say, have faith in yourself first. That's the way. If you are pure, if you are strong, you, one man, are equal to the whole world. Take up one idea. Make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, and live on that idea. Let the brain, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea, and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success. Never mind the struggles, the mistakes. I never heard a cow tell a lie, but it is only a cow, never a man. So never mind these failures, these little backslidings. Hold the ideal 1,000 times, and if you fail 1,000 times, please make one more attempt. I want each one of my children to be 100 times greater than I could ever be. Every one of you must be a giant. Must. That is the word that I have chosen. Obedience, readiness, and love for the cause. If you have these, then nothing can hold you back. I hate cowardice. I will have nothing to do with cowards or political nonsense. I do not believe in any politics. God and truth are the only politics in the world. Everything else is trash. Do not be afraid of small beginnings. Great things will come afterwards. Be courageous. Do not try to lead your brethren, but serve them. The brutal mania for leading has sunk many a great ships in the waters of life. Take care of that. Be unselfish, even unto death, and work hard. Be strong, my young friends. That is my advice to you. You will be nearer to heaven through football than through the Gita. These are bold words, but I have to say them. For I love you, and I know where the shoe pinches. Arise, awake, sleep no more. Within each of you there is a power to remove all wants and all miseries. Believe this, and that power will be manifest. Be free. Hope for nothing from anyone. I am sure if you look back upon your lives, you will find that you were always vainly trying to get help from others, which never came. Who is helping you? Don't forget them. Who is loving you? Don't hate them. Who is believing you? Don't cheat them. Talk to yourself once in a day. Otherwise you may miss a meeting with an excellent person in this world. Fill your brain with high thoughts, the highest ideals. Place them day and night before you, and out of that will come great work. Do not wait for anybody or anything. Do whatever you can. Build your hopes on none. The best thermometer to the progress of a nation is its treatment of women. Experience is the only teacher we have. We may talk and reason all of our lives, but we shall not understand a word of truth. Take risks in your life. If you win, you can lead. If you lose, you can guide. Once, when I asked God for strength, He gave me difficult situations to face. The reason for every misunderstanding is that we see the people as we are, but not as they are. Every act of love brings happiness. There is no act of love which does not bring peace and blessedness as its reaction. All differences in this world are but of degree and not kind, because oneness is the secret of everything. See for the highest, aim for the highest, and you shall reach the highest. The fire that warms us can also consume us. It is not the fault of the fire. He who struggles is far better than he who never even attempts. Let men have light. Let them be pure and spiritually strong and educated. Then alone will misery cease in this world, not before. When an idea exclusively occupies the mind, it is transformed into an actual physical or mental state. The greatest religion is to be true to your nature. Have faith, real faith, in yourself. When a man is under the control of the senses, he is of the world. When he has controlled his senses, the world is of him. A man is not poor without a rupee, but a man is really poor without a dream and ambition. External nature is only internal nature writ large. In a conflict between the head and the heart, follow your heart. You have grown from the inside out. None can teach you, none can make you spiritual. There is no other teacher but your own soul. Anything that makes you weak, physically, intellectually, and spiritually, reject it as poison. That man has reached immortality, who is disturbed by nothing material. The world is a great gymnasium where we come to make ourselves strong. True progress is slow, but sure. The gift of knowledge is the highest and greatest gift of the world. The brain and the muscles must develop simultaneously. Iron nerves with an intelligent brain, and the whole world is at your feet. I pity the Hindu who does not see the beauty in Jesus Christ's character. You can follow these spiritual quotes in your daily life. Had I lived in Palestine in the days of Jesus of Nazareth, I would have washed his feet not with my tears, but with my heart's blood. God is to be worshipped as the one beloved, dearer than everything in this and the next life. Christ, being man, had to see impurity and denounce it, but God, infinitely higher, does not see iniquity and cannot therefore be angry. The more we come out and do good to others, the more our hearts will be purified and God will live in them. You cannot believe in God until you believe in yourself. All the powers in the universe are already ours. It is we who have put our hand before our eyes and cry that it is dark. You are looking for God. God is here, in all these souls around you. In one word, this ideal is that you are divine. Comfort is no test of truth. Truth is often far from being comfortable. Do not lower your goals to the level of your ability. Instead, raise your ability to the height of your goals. Books are infinite in number and time is short. The secret of knowledge is to take what is essential, take that, and try and live up to it. The mind is but the subtle part of the body. You must retain great strength in your mind and words. First, believe in the world, that there is meaning behind everything. Death is the result of inaction.
Radhe 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 Bolo, Radhe Govinda Bolo. Radhe 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 Bolo, Radhe Govinda Bolo. Radhe 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 bolo, Radhe Govinda bolo, Radhe 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 bolo, Radhe Govinda bolo.
Oh, deep blue Lord of my heart, show me your unmasked face, shining like 1,000 suns in an empty sky. Oh, ragged soul, unleash me from the body, free me from mind, release me from the iron grip of the senses, banish me forever from this weary world. Dear Redeemer, I bow to you by the reedy river, see you in the trees, gather you in the harvest, breathe you in the morning breeze. Soul shaker, shake loose my pride, turn me upside down, drown me in your foaming tide. Lord Shri Krishna, smiling cowherd of Vrindavan, allow me entrance into your abode, but only as a speck of dust along your road, or a feather fallen from your proud peacocks, a drop of water in your ocean. Nothing grand may I be, but grand enough to live with thee.
Radhe 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 bolo, Radhe Govinda bolo. Radhe 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 bolo, Radhe Govinda bolo. Radhe 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 bolo, Radhe Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Who is Sripad Jagannath Das? Sripad Jagannath Das was born in Rochester, New York, in the early afternoon of September 11, 1953. As a child, he experienced many spontaneous spiritual episodes centered around the realization of the reality of God, transmigration, and the soul. Jagannath is a student of the 5,000-year-old non-sectarian devotional yoga path. At 15, he began the serious practice of Bhakti Yoga as taught by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the foremost exponent of the science of self-realization in the modern world. 3 years later, he traveled to London to personally study with his master after having spent time as a brahmachari, or celibate student, in a Tampa, Florida ashram under Pushta Krishna Swami. At 21, Jagannath traveled alone to India, living in the beautiful village of Mala, just outside Rishikesh, and also in Vrindavan, Uttar Pradesh. Following 3 years of intensive study and meditation, he made his way back to the United States. There, under his secular name of Jeffrey Giuliano, he became the internationally best-selling author of over 32 books and 1,000 audiobooks, all on the subject of spirituality, yoga philosophy, popular music, and culture. When he was 30, he took formal initiation from His Grace Swami B.H. Mangal Maharaj in Toronto, along with his wife Vrindarani Devi. Together they established a large country ashram, Krishna temple, food bank, recording complex, and animal sanctuary in Lockport, New York. At the age of 40, however, Das began to slowly wind down his various business activities in order to fulfill the prophecy of his time in India and the wish of his spiritual masters that he help spread the inspirational tenets of bhakti in the Gaudiya Vaishnav tradition everywhere. Jagannath then moved to Bangkok, where he became a popular film actor, and in 2017 established an audiobook company, Icon Audio Arts, which he runs today with his young son, Eden Garrett Giuliano. They split their time between Thailand and India.
We hope you've enjoyed this Inner Lion Media presentation. Inner Lion Media. Thank you for listening.